Team 3, hi. It's Timothy. I'm so happy to read your recommendation. It's one with which I can agree wholeheartedly. I think it's terrific, and it catches something that, we haven't always been successful at not exploiting, but using to our advantage. So, I think when I was talking to you at the setup for this exercise, I told you that we have this young people's audience at our dress rehearsal. And one of the things that struck me over the years is how it's become less and less the sort of school trip exercise you do, wearing your jeans or whatever, and more of an evening out, even for school students who come now more and more dressed to the nines. And it's fantastic for me to see kids in junior school, sometimes even elementary school, with their suits and dresses and even corsages I've seen. So the idea of romance at the opera is there for sure, and we haven't always been very good at it. I think I also mentioned that we did have a young business persons group, and we're talking 30-something, and we invited them as a group, and they came, and we gave them not just a performance, but a reception on stage afterwards with cocktails and a tour of the set and eventually some dancing. And that seemed to be very successful. We haven't pursued it to the same degree. And I think you're right that we can add that sexiness, that night out quality, that rejuvenation of romance or discovery of romance, all of which are fantastic. And so I really take to heart your suggestions, and I want to pursue them. I will put a cautionary note in when you talk about redesigning the website and getting rid of the subscribe and donate aspect to what the website represents. Of course, we have to provide information. I would say I don't want to take this idea so far that we start to alienate that older audience, which is still very important to us. And I'll tell you why. Most of our major donors come from the older crowd, and that stands to reason. It's towards the end of your working life that you've amassed whatever assets you have, and are beginning to think about how best to use them, since you may not be spending them on your last day. So that's something I want to take into account in making it sexy, but not alienating the older crowd that may be past thinking about those things in the same way. So good idea, good research, interesting proposal for the company, and thank you very much.
Timothy, I have one follow-up question. As you were talking, I was thinking, do you have a Valentine's Day show? Because this is completely something that a couple would do on Valentine's Day.
It's a fascinating question because for many years we open on or around Valentine's Day. Mid-February is when we have traditionally opened, and the 14th has been either a dress rehearsal or a performance date many, many, many times in our history, and we've certainly gone the distance with pushing that a little bit. But again, maybe not as much as we should. There's this to be said, too. Every idea entails, however easy it sounds when you're sitting around a table, because believe me, I do a lot of sitting around a table and talking about stuff, and ideas come up and they sound fantastic. Never forget, when you make these proposals, that there are resource requirements attached to every idea. How are these things going to be implemented? What will they cost? Who is going to do them? Is it within the company's purview to get this done without a large outlay? If we go in this direction, are we adding to potential deficit by this investment? And is there a guaranteed return? These are things that it's good to bear in mind. It doesn't mean that it stymies or stifles every good idea, I hope, but it is something to think about.
Thanks.
Hi, Team 3. So as you just heard, Timothy really was very, very receptive to your idea and raised as his only concern a concern that you had already yourself recognized, which is how do you launch this new image without alienating your existing demographic, who, as Timothy points out, are the ones who have the money for philanthropic donations. So I'll just give you a few of my own comments. Now, first of all, I'll first respond as an individual human being, and then I'll respond as your instructor in terms of your process. So as an individual, loved. I mean, I am the demographic you are targeting. How you turn the idea of accessibility on its head, and and this goes back to the idea of doubling down, which I posted about in the discussion forum. Instead of saying, "Oh, let's make it more accessible," no, let's actually play up the fact that you need to dress up for this. So great work, clearly resonated with. You really, in my mind, have found that intersection of utility and novelty. So it is a creative idea because in a way it seems so intuitive, right? So, I made a bunch of comments, both as I was going through and as Timothy was talking. So I'm just going to read them out, but they won't be sequenced. When I asked Timothy about the Valentine's Day show, I think a very doable BHAG would be that this is the thing that everyone does. That it's hard, it's hard to get tickets to the opera on Valentine's Day as it is to get reservations for dinner. That's doable. When I think about the diamond industry, how they made diamonds into the thing that every that's the proof of love and of commitment is a diamond. Well, in a way, an opera, taking your wife to an opera could be the same kind of thing, right? So, and then when Timothy was talking about, how do you not alienate your old audience? I thought of a singular event, which I mean a one-off event being like marriage tips from old people to young people or something like that. That would bring the generations together at a night at the opera. In terms of the writing itself, very good work, just starting with the positives of Pacific Opera. Very good way. We get so focused on the problems when we do a case that clearly a better way to start is to acknowledge what they already do well. I thought the little black dress campaign, in terms of that whole sexiness, romance thing, I thought that struck a good balance. Little black dress, that's going more to the side of not being very risque, but being dressed up. All right, if I go into your process, it seems like I would be curious to hear how that worked out for you with Patrick as process coordinator. It seemed like a well thought out decision. I thought your process, with your assessing the situation, clearly excellent. You've done an excellent job, with your Linoit, your SWOT, your further research. Very, very, very thorough work. Now, I thought it was really interesting that in exploring the vision, and I can't read it because it's too small, but I think what I wrote for wouldn't it be nice, the idea you ultimately came to was the first idea you thought of. Unless this was edited so that you put it in there. But if, in fact, you're putting the sexy back into opera was the first idea you came up with, what does that say about creative process? What might that teach you for future? What lessons might you draw from that? You had an amazing facility with tools. You went from Linoit to I think Google Docs to the blog, which you didn't use extensively, but I'd be curious to hear about your reflections about when you did use it. There were, I think, about 4 or 5 posts there. Great work. So you were really. How was it to flip between mediums? Was it confusing, or did they suit your tools? I'll be curious to hear. Also, be curious, how did the forced connections work? How you clearly did a really thorough job of that, and did that yield results? Your teamwork was amazing. When I looked into the documents, for example, in the Google Docs, and saw how you built on each other's ideas, great work. So please give me an analysis of what was going on there when you get to the paper. Evidence throughout of building on ideas is what I wrote. So throughout you can see each other making each other's ideas better. Decision criteria. I think you need to look at your decision criteria. So you have feasibility, appeal, compatibility, cool and sexy, and potential. Get a level more specific. So is feasibility cost, or is it, as you say, like how important it is to find the right agency to promote this? Is it what exactly do you mean by feasibility? Get one level more precise. I understand I limited the criteria, and you might be trying to be broad for that reason. Genuinely converge on some specific criteria. What are the most important things to you? So appeal, same thing. appeal? What exactly do you mean? And does it overlap with cool and sexy? Are you trying to say that cool and sexy is appealing, and are those measuring the same thing? Compatibility, it seems like what you're saying here is respect for opera, but it could also be compatibility with their existing strategy, in which case it would overlap with feasibility. So and potential for what? So get one level more specific here, please, around what exactly you're measuring in terms of success. Otherwise, great work, team. Fantastic process, fantastic outcome. What more can? Oh, I do have one more thing actually to say in terms of concerns to overcome. So Timothy mentioned the concern of not alienating the current demographic. I think an equal concern is throughout the arts there is a dip in terms of couples with children do not attend events. And I think there's a reason for that dip, right? There's babysitting costs, there's you want something tried and true because it's so rare you get out. There's all kinds of logistical things. And I think you can't sort of launch this event if you're thinking that your couples have kids and you're not only marketing to couples without kids, 30 to 50-year-olds without kids, because that is the age in which people have kids, right? Then you need to address that concern, because if North America wide or even internationally, this demographic is not going out to shows, to somehow say that you'll market something through Pacific Opera Victoria and all of a sudden they'll show up, I think might be naive. So I would ask you to seriously consider that concern, not as a deal breaker, but as, okay, so now we'll use our creativity to overcome it. Oh, and also, you know what, I must have missed some of my notes because I remember writing them down, but I do not see them here. Oh, here they are. I missed a whole page. I was also thinking, Barbara, this one's for you. Where did I write it down? When you did the build an opera house idea, I was thinking, like, should there be some kind of center? Should this somehow be combined with the library? Places that are important to our sense of humanity and culture, like the opera, like the library, that need to morph as they move forward, should they somehow be coming together? So when I saw your opera house, I thought, well, I was thinking about Victoria Library needing a new home and trying to relocate, and they wanted to go into the old Hudson Bay Company, but it ended up being made into condos, and can we afford to house a new library? And I was thinking, what if this was what, somehow by bringing different cultural places together, you created something new and vibrant. So I was thinking about you in that, and I think that was my last note. All right, let me know if you have questions. Great work. I look forward to your